What's incredible is that we didn't have a mailbag for like a month, and it was usually we were only getting like 20 or 30 questions every time. Now there was 72. I've pared that down. Again, we're not answering all your questions, but we'll try to get to the rest of them on Friday. But nonetheless, it is the Michigan Mailbag. You guys have some pressing questions, so let's get to it. Whether it's, I actually don't know if I saw any Bryce Underwood questions, but certainly beating Ohio State, if that's possible, other things of that ilk, what Michigan needs to do to kind of repair itself, all of that on this episode of Locked On Wolverines.
You are Locked On Wolverines, your daily podcast on the Michigan Wolverines, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday. We are back and doing it. Locked On Wolverines podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. I'm your man on the ground, Isaiah Hole, publisher of Wolverines Wire through USA Today Sports Media Group. Let's get right into it with our leaders and best. Let's start with James Crudup at James Crudup 6. Do you have any insight on if starting as a true freshman is important to the Underwood camp? I guess right off the bat. I don't usually read the leaders and best in advance because I just know they're going to have good questions. Is there any insight as to starting as a true freshman if it's important to the Underwood camp? If he were to flip, would that change the portal approach from going after a sure starter to a serviceable veteran backup? I don't believe that there's like a mandate for him to start. Now, I don't know. I will tell you that I don't know something. I just don't believe I do believe Michigan is still going to look for some veteran leadership. I would expect it to look kind of like a mix between 2021 and 2022 in that sense, of like one guy starts the season and before long the other would take over if Underwood did come to Michigan. But I don't know specifically that how important it is to them. I don't think it's a deal breaker. And I do know he has a willingness, like an eagerness to learn, an insatiable thirst for football. So that's good. My brother in metal, Michael Wolf at MWolf21. The final score prediction for Indiana to upset Ohio State. Assuming Underwood is coming, does Michigan get a portal QB and have a 1A, 1B scenario? Obviously, I just kind of answered that last one. We'll touch a little bit more on it. I do think it would end up being that, kind of like the Cade JJ dynamic in 21. And I think that's, if he can't come, I do think it would at least start off that way. Not necessarily in the same way, because like JJ was just like run. Underwood can do that, but I don't think that's what they would do. I don't know, though. As far as the final score prediction for Indiana, Ohio State, I really don't know, because part of me looks at that matchup. Like I kind of backed off a little bit of the optimism I had for Indiana based off of what Michigan did to them. And the offense didn't look good, but and a lot of that was Indiana, but I just think it'll be easier for Ohio State in some ways. But if CJ West is busting through the Ohio State offensive line with Seth McLaughlin out, anything can change in a hurry. I love how we always deal with weekly microphone or daily microphone issues. So I right now it's a toss up. I don't have a final score prediction, not to cop out. I just don't have one. Jimmy Whitner at Jimmy Whitner 1. Do you think Michigan finishes with a top 10 class? Yes, I do think they will finish with a top 10 class. Assuming everyone that I do think is going to end up in the class does end up in the class. Not even just saying Underwood, like even some of the other guys like Nathaniel Owusu-Boateng and a bunch of others that I think will end up in this class when everything is said and done. I think they'll end up being there. Number 2, are you surprised at how good the women's basketball freshmen are? Sure. I don't really pay attention, to be honest. Listen, I'm one person that has to do basically 4 jobs, right? A lot of people do a podcast once or twice a week. A lot of them write, and cover the team stuff. Usually you have a separate recruiting person. You have a separate, photo person and all of that. And I'm doing and then I have a weekly, a daily podcast rather. So it's hard for me to keep track of things outside of my immediate orbit. It's hard enough sometimes for me to even get to everything football, let alone men's basketball, let alone women's basketball. You know what I mean? Number 3, what are you looking to see in the Northwestern game most on Saturday? I just want to see like a crisp performance. I would like to see like the first game where Michigan just takes control and dominates. I don't know that that's going to happen, but I would like to see it. It's your really only option. And we haven't seen it at all this year, not once. So I would like to see that from start to finish, okay? So that's what I would like to see. Sorry, just had a notification. Want to make sure it wasn't something that we could talk about on the show. Jonathan Joseph at JJoseph2156. Would you hire back Biff Poggi, and should they have a contract waiting for him this weekend? Yes and yes. I mean, he was an absolute culture changer. I absolutely think that they should. And I think that that's probably one of the reasons why he's coming back. I mean, that it just feels that way to me. I don't have any inside info on that, but that's just me kind of venturing to guess on that. Finishing us out in segment 1, Spencer Whitmore. At Spencer Whitmore, am I insane to think that we have a chance against Ohio State? I don't know. It's just a weird feeling I have going into next week. Feel like if we can muster 21 points, 3 touchdowns, then we've got a shot. Anything can happen, and I know that there was a Buckeye that was harassing you in the comments there. But listen, they've been that way for the last 3 years. Like silly Michigan fans think they've got a shot, and all of that. I do think they have a chance because any team kind of has a chance. I don't think it's necessarily a big one. It takes okay, did they do things to prepare for Ohio State that we just haven't seen? Can the offense be crisp? And can the defense live up to expectations? You do those 3 things, then they've got a shot. Is it okay, then they are going to win? No, you also just have to things just has to also go your way. You also would need some Ryan Day turtling. You would need different things you would just need kind of the same type of mentality from Ohio State that Michigan had when it was going through some of its things. But I think it's a little different with Chip Kelly there. But I also don't think Ohio State's nearly as good as people kind of say they are. Now, you are what your record. I disagree with my friend Josh Pate. I do think you are who your record says you are. I think that's the only thing you are generally. But at the same time, I think that Ohio State has not necessarily impressed me as much as I thought that they would. And we'll see, right? There's a reason why they play games and why they're not just computer simulations. Michigan has a shot. It might not be a great one, but I don't like where Michigan is. I don't like where Michigan is at all, but they've got a shot, and some of it's intangible and some of it could be tangible. Michigan still has the number 1 pass rush in the country, believe it or not, according to PFF. So we'll get an idea kind of how Ohio State's offense handles the Indiana defense, which has also a really good pass rush, which also has the best defense they've seen all year. And did Michigan learn some lessons? Is Kirk Campbell calling plays? There's a lot of variables that lead me to ask some questions. Here, if I can just get this some bend, it won't. The problem is yesterday's podcast, I think, was really quiet. Trying to avoid that. All right, we're going to move on. We've got so many questions left. Not as many as you guys asked, but we're going with those who have asked questions before. That was the rubric for today. Do I recognize your name? So if I didn't recognize your name, ask more questions more often, and then I'll recognize your name. So we'll get to more questions here in just a moment. But before we do you struggle to find the perfect gift for the holidays? So maybe gift giving isn't your love language. You overthink it. You wind up with something disappointing or nothing at all. Are you buying something for someone who has everything or just seems unpleasable? Are you tired of wasting money on useless clutter that no one really needs? Well, we've got the perfect gift for you. The Skylight Frame is a touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. Setup takes less than 60 seconds, and the touchscreen is a game changer. Swipe through the photos, tap to see new photos sent, tap the heart button to say thank you to the sender, because here's the thing. There's seamless sharing, which means that you can invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Skylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription is required, and you can add photos straight from your phone from anywhere. That makes it that much more of a game changer. It's better than social media. It's a great private way to share photos without posting it to the world or having to print and go to the store and print and have them give you hard copies. Now a special limited time offer for our listeners to get $20 off for a reading comprehension, not my good thing. Get $20 off of your purchase of a skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/college. All right, we're going to continue on here in just a moment. But before we do, get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, let's continue on. We've got so many more questions here. Let's go with Jim at Jim in the North to kick off the Victor's Valiant. Do you think Moore bounces back next season, and will Campbell be gone? I can't answer number two. Number one, out of not wanting to. Also B, out of not knowing for sure. Not knowing if it's, hey, do we make a change at offensive coordinator but keep him on staff? Do we do something different? Like, I can't tell you. As far as my thoughts of Moore bouncing back next season, I think he will, because I just think that they're going to upgrade the talent so significantly. I think that there's going to be some transfers coming in that no one would have ever thought of, and it will surprise people. I think that there's going to be just obviously some recruiting fireworks and things of that nature that are going to help Michigan out. There's just, I think, a lot from that perspective. I think that they'll certainly go through the coaching staff and change some things up. And I think that that's going to be a massive help for them. So I think that things will certainly be in a different scenario as far as that's concerned. All right, here I'm just looking. I'm just making sure I am operating on the same spreadsheet here. I am. I've got two different documents open on two different screens, and they say there's different word counts, but they're the same questions. I don't get it. I don't understand it. Let's keep rolling. Perry Mitchell at Perry Mitchell 08. How aggressive should the staff be in the portal outside of quarterback? It seems that every level of the defense could use pieces, and the wide receiver room absolutely needs an influx of talent, or they'll end up relying on freshmen and Samaj Morgan. I think you're absolutely right. They do need to be aggressive. They need to do all the things that we always said that they shouldn't do, but this is college football, and at this point, this is legal, so just do what you can. And it sounds like that they're probably going to. I can't imagine. They're still going to build through recruiting, right? And development is the goal and the plan. But I think that you definitely need to wide receiver, offensive line. I think that, they might be okay in some positions like defensive line. Maybe they find a pass rusher, but there's they've got guys that absolutely could do it. Does Rashawn Benny and Derek Moore come back? Does Rod Moore come back at safety? Because then you probably don't need to go get a safety, because you got Jared Mangum, and you're seeing a lot from Mason Curtis and Brandon Hillman, and then that feels better. Do you need to bring in corners, or are you ready to roll with Josiah Edmond and other, right? Like there's, which would be Jair Hill, obviously, but are you able to rely on the pieces you already have? And but I definitely think offensively more so, I would definitely look for more pieces there than I would defensively, because I feel like they've got pieces that could work defensively. Okay. All right, let's move on. James Kovalevsky I always say your name every single week. Kovalevsky at Coach_Kovo. You mentioned last week that some of the new NIL money being generated is on top of the separate and established NIL channels. Does Coach Moore approve and handle all negotiations and offers from the various NIL funds, or can other parties make offers on behalf of Michigan? Other parties absolutely can make offers on behalf of Michigan. I think I don't think that Sharon Moore is necessarily sitting there offer this guy this, offer this guy this, or hey, we need to rate. I think a lot of that is handled outside of that, right? And that's kind of where Sean McGee's at, where the collectives are at, all of those things. They're the ones that more so control it. Now, obviously, they're going to have a say in the sense of if Sharon Moore is let's say that there's a non-Bryce Underwood quarterback out there. Michigan really wants Bryce Underwood, but there's some donors out there that really, really want to bring Carter Smith back to Michigan. and they're like, we're gonna spend $10 million of our money to bring him back. Like it. I mean, Michigan would welcome him back. I can tell you that. But I'm just saying, like, if it's something like that, like they might be like, yeah, you probably shouldn't do that. Like, we don't, that's not. Carter Smith's a bad example. Let's say as a quarterback, they just don't want. And because again, Michigan would love to have Carter Smith back in the fold, regardless of the Bryce Underwood of it all. But if it's one of those situations where they're like trying to bring in somebody that they don't want with money, like they kind of can't stop them, the donors from that, but they cannot accept the commitment. So there has to be some synergy. If you understand what I'm saying. Brett Schroetz at bschroetz5. Is there anything to this tweet? And it was the Sharon's after Elijah Dotson committed, the best players in Michigan go to Michigan. No. He does that pretty much. I know you want to read into it and say it's going to, this is a wink towards the Bryce Underwood of it all. No, this every time there's an in-state player that commits, that happens every time from pretty much every coach on staff. So, there's nothing to that. I don't think. I'm not the one at William Cawthorne 9. I know you said you've tuned down your Michigan fandom, but do you still say go blue or sing Mr. Brightside? It's funny that I have to answer this question on a day in which I have chosen to wear my home field Michigan jacket, home field Michigan national champions sweatshirt, and a Rose Bowl hat. Because it doesn't really look like I've tuned down my Michigan fandom. But the answer to your question, do I still say go blue or sing Mr. Brightside? I do not sing Mr. Brightside. I probably give out about 5 go blues a year, if that. And it's always if someone says it to me first. And it depends on who it is. If it was in an academic sense, I'd probably be a little bit more inclined to say go blue. Because as you know, I did graduate from Michigan. But no, I'm going to say this very ironically, if you're watching on the podcast, I'm not a homer. So I admit that I'm a homer in many ways. But there's different ways to be a homer while still like pulling out your bias in certain points, right? Like what's the real of what's going on type stuff. Okay. There's a reason why some that many thought were pessimists and many who think I'm an optimist. I was the one banging I don't know that this team's going to make a bowl game drum, while others were like, are you kidding me? They're going to be like at least whatever. The problem is with stuff like that is I put something in print with the Scott Bell thing saying like, 10-2. But it took one game and I was like, no, it's not what this team's going to be. Who will win a conference champion first, Dusty or Sharon? That's hard to say. Could be a tie. Could be next year. But I think Dusty could win it this year, honestly, if this team continues to come together. I think it's an easier path in basketball because like any given year, anyone could at least win the tournament. But we'll see. We'll see how this team comes together. Sharon might be 1 or 2 years away, maybe 3, kind of just depending. Like it's just it's much harder in football right now with all the teams that are in the conference compared to basketball, which I just feel like you can get hot and you can get good a lot easier than you can in football. Is it that difficult to have crossover episodes or guests like Anthony Broom or Chris Ballas? It's crazy how you all cover the same team but have significantly different takes. Ballas is a half-empty type of guy, whereas though I see you as a half-full type of guy. It's just different, sometimes we have different intel. That's part of it. And yes, I know people have asked, like, do you share intel? I sometimes share some of my intel with them and they with me. We're all friends and everything. But generally we don't come to bat with articles or podcasts and stuff with armed with each other's intel, right? But nonetheless, I think sometimes though it's the interpretation of intel and everything. And I think maybe it's just worldview. I'm more of a half full type of guy. It doesn't really feel like it in my real life, but I guess I am in a lot of ways. I just look at things a little bit more positively. Maybe it's my faith and all of that. But I just tend to look at things differently. If Davis Ward had better talent around him, like maybe last year's team, what do you think his ceiling would be? I don't think it would be much different because as the receiver room was better with Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson. I don't think it was like you also had a generational quarterback in JJ McCarthy who made them look good too. I think that I think having the line that they had in the run game with Blake Corum, I think that's kind of more so the difference maker. And I think then you're with Davis Warren, you're maybe looking at maybe an 8-4 or 9-3 season with last year's team. Quarterback makes that much of a difference, especially it did last year. You have like JJ McCarthy really single-handedly won some games for Michigan, and people don't really recognize that. Defense too. Jacob Shavaria at Shavaria, plus or minus 56 points scored by Ohio State next week. Will he be on the sidelines or in a box next week? I will be on the sidelines, I believe. I haven't gotten my credential approved yet by Ohio State, I don't believe. But definitely minus 56 points for Ohio scored by Ohio State. I know the defense has had its issues, but like they didn't give that up to Texas or Oregon or anything like that. And I think that those two offenses are better than Ohio State's, to be honest. So I'm definitely going under. Definitely very much a minus on that. The Rican Raider at Hamstand 87. Do you think Michigan is looking at offensive coordinators? Maybe. I don't. That's just not something I'm going to touch on right now. They have a gainfully employed offensive coordinator at this point, so. Also, tell Dave Biddle he doesn't want more smoke with me. Listen, Dave's a friend of mine, or we were ex-coworkers at 24/7, and we've had a good relationship. So, you know what? To each their, best of luck to both of you in your battle of words or whatever it is. Finishing out segment 2, Clark at Blue for Life 8. Do you think Biff gets another head coaching job, or is Michigan able to get him back on staff? I think I'm going to guess he's not getting another head coaching job because unless he goes back to high school, it's not like Charlotte was going in a direction that, from an on-field standpoint, that gave them confidence. So therefore, no, I think that the chances would, if him wanting to be in college probably means going to Michigan, or he could go back to high school. I would think, I'm sure he'll have other opportunities for other roles, but Michigan probably feels very comfortable to him at this point. All right, we're going to move on. We've got plenty of questions left, and we're running out of time. So let's get to those here in just a moment. But before we do, let me tell you a little about a way that you can have a little extra fun while you are watching your favorite sports. That's Prize Picks. And it is an absolutely amazing daily fantasy sports that makes getting real money in the sports action super easy. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. And PrizePicks is the best place to get money, real money sports action. Join over 10 million users to sign up today. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. So download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app, use the code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, this isn't going to necessarily be lightning round, but they got to go a little quick because we've got like 6 minutes left here before the camera shuts off. Tough break considering less questions. George Paul Lewis at G13 Lewis starting out for the Blue Crew / Victor's Valiant. That's what these are. Will Michigan rehire Don Brown and Biff Poggi? On the Don Brown, no, he's not coming back. Biff Poggi, maybe. Wolverine Devotee at Wolverine Devot 1. What best guess at what comes of Michigan's response to the NCAA allegations? I'm sure they'll accept some culpability in some things. I'm sure that if the NCAA if they feel like the NCAA is being overhanded, I mean, what happened. People are going to be cheating and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, again, it was limited to Connor Stallions and everything that he did. I don't think much is going to come of the Sharon text thing because he gave them the text. He deleted them and then he gave them to him. Like, it's just not a big deal as far as that's concerned. I would expect that Michigan's probably they're going to try to hit Michigan. I think Michigan certainly will respond, and then there will be something in between, and it's not going to be the hammer, as other people say. Highly doubt it. Colin Denovix at Denovix. I'm sure you get this a lot, but I haven't listened in a while. What's the word on the Bryce Underwood situation, brother? You gotta just go to the Bryce Underwood. Go to the most recent one that isn't a mailbag. That's unfortunately where we're at. It's too much to talk about in one mailbag. Harry Dieters at Harry Dieters. So Bryce Underwood, what does LSU have that Michigan doesn't? The weather, food, supposed QB development. I think sometimes it's just like, you just like a place, like a school. You romanticize it and everything. That said, again, I still think Michigan's in a really good spot. Wink to you guys at the Ponderosa, which I went and checked out your site, your message board the other day. I got a shout out on there, but it wasn't in a nice way. Listen, I know things that are going on. Like I said, I can't, if I tell you what's happened, it won't happen. But we'll tell you how this whole thing went down. I wrote out a timeline of it all last night. I think it's pretty spot on in terms of this happened then, and then this happened, and then this happened type. But we'll go over that in great detail later. But I do think that still that Michigan's in a very good place, and I would think that it's all right. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I'm just not going to get ahead of myself. How do you know? How much do you know about the situation? And does Bryce even want to come to Michigan? A $10.5 million NIL is bonkers, and I don't see how any program can match that for one player. The number's still not accurate, according to 3 sources that I spoke to that would know. As I know a ton about the situation, of course, and because I've talked to multiple people who are talking directly to Bryce. I've talked to people inside Michigan, and I've talked to people that are just in the orbit of both, right? Like, this isn't just like, one person told me and they heard it from another person, all that kind of stuff. This goes much deeper than that. So as far as does he want to come to Michigan? I mean, clearly, like, he's not going to just come to Michigan strictly because of the money. It's going to also have to be like he's sold on Michigan. Michigan's going to make it competitive from a monetary standpoint, that it's like, okay, that makes sense. But also all of the other things that Michigan can sell that honestly a lot of other schools just cannot, from an academic standpoint, the alumni base, all of these different things. That's not to disparage LSU, and I understand that they won't look at it that way, but there's a reason why Michigan is one of the top academic institutions in the country. Again, I'm not disparaging LSU. I'm just talking about what Michigan is. And I think that is going to play a part. The being close to home, friends, all of these different things. These are all little factors that add up. So I think it's not going to be like Bryce is going to be begrudgingly in the building if he flips. Let me put it that way. Let's finish out with Brandon Blankenship at BJ Blank 00. He wanted to ask a personal question here. He asked, did you grow up a Christian or come to Christ later in life? If asked, why are you a Christian? What would be your answer? I love your outward love for Christ on your podcast. It is very refreshing to see and hear. Keep it up. Well, I appreciate that. And I know that this will draw the ire of those who like to call this the Locked On Jesus podcast. I just hope that I am not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it is more my goal in life to spread his love and his word than anything else. That's first and foremost. I did grow up a Christian. I went to being born with the name Isaiah in 1981. Certainly connotes that. But I did go to Christian school from preschool until 8th grade when I finally went to public school. And then I would say I became kind of a Christian in name only for a while. And the Lord really worked wonderfully in my life. And when I met Sarah, I prayed, even though I was a Christian in name only, kind of. And he said, she will bring you back to me. And that's true. That happened. Unfortunately, we are broken up now, Sarah and I. That's an announcement that I'm saving for the end of the show. But you know what? Jesus worked his way through her to me, and I couldn't be more blessed. That's going to do it. We've got 15 seconds, actually 8 seconds left. So let's end this off. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back on Friday. Peace.